Call a meeting of the Wright County Board of Adjustment for September 13th, 2024 to order. First item of the business will be the minutes for the August 23rd meeting. Those of you that have read them and seen them, is there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I'd like to make one correction. So item number 5 during the motion, the document number that was listed was 035008. We would like that to say document number 825305.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented with those corrections.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. First item is, Aaron, you want to get us started?
Sure. First item on the agenda, we have Unfold Architecture, with the applicant there being Michael Gray. Could the applicant and anyone speaking on behalf of the request step forward and state your first and last name?
Morning, Michael Gray.
All right, I'll give a brief overview here. So this request, it is located at 1386 Arnold Avenue Northwest in Chatham Township. Property is about 0.48 acres, zoned urban rural transition, and located on Buffalo Lake, which is classified as general development. The request is to construct a home that is 1,636 square feet, or has a footprint of that size, with a garage that is 627 square feet, and it would be 29.8 feet from the ordinary high water line of the channel portion of the lake, and meeting the lake setback from the, traditional portion of the lake. It'd be 63 feet from the center line of the road, and this was continued from the last meeting so that a stormwater management plan could be drafted. I did receive one last night, so I wasn't able to get it into your actual packet, was able to get it on the PowerPoint for this morning. So the board initially had concerns about the proposed home closer to the channel area than the existing home, but they did end the discussion at the last meeting with the proposed home's location being acceptable, but the stormwater management plan would need to be addressed. So per the board's directive, they wanted to see a plan that showed all stormwater runoff from a 2-inch rain event staying on site. And from the township, they did approve of the request as the water capacity will be the same or better. And I did not receive any written public response. So that will wrap up my overview.
Okay, does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
It's not a ton here. I think it's pretty straightforward. The request was for the 2-inch rainfall catchment, and this plan in front of you, the equations or the math is on the upper right there. We're showing 2-inch rainfall event being caught in the rain garden that's shown on the plans and is essentially the same as what we had in our renderings prior. So I can answer any detailed questions as needed. But
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to have a comment or question? Seeing none, Dan?
Yeah, I can get started. Looking at your plan and being able to hold that 2-inch rainfall, because that was one of the things that I know I asked for and wanted to see. And you've provided us with that. We went over last meeting, the sewer placement and what you were doing with that and why that needed to be where it was. So with this, being able to maintain the 2-inch rainfall on their property, I'm okay with the plan as presented now.
Okay. Mr. Vick?
I concur with Dan. I was on there too. I wasn't accepting, but with the 2-inch rainfall, I think he did a good job.
Okay. Russ?
I think we're ready to vote on it, because I have no further questions either.
Okay. I was not here last meeting, so I assume that building coverage and impervious surface are all adequate.
Correct. I can pull it up. They're showing, was it 22.8% impervious? If a motion's going to be made, I guess I would like to point out, instead of approving specifically this stormwater management plan, which we would accept, I would prefer that you guys would run it as a stormwater management plan condition that shows runoff from a 2-inch rain event staying on site, submitted at time of building permit application. It's in case in the future, who knows, 10 years down the road, maybe there's a more feasible, less maintenance, cheaper alternative that does just as good, if not a better job than this rain garden. We would allow them to do that without having to come back to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. Anybody else have further comments? A motion would be order.
I'll make a motion to approve the plans as presented. Conditions of the storm management plan that shows runoff with a 2-inch rain event should stay on site and be submitted at the time of the building permit application. Site plan noted as Exhibit A, and the building plans noted as Exhibit B.
Okay, everyone's heard the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
Opposed?
you all. Oh, sorry.
Motion carried.
I got ahead of you. Thank you.
Okay, item 2. Is it Travis, is it Trulette? Trulette. Please come forward.
Hello again.
Aaron?
All right, so brief overview on this one here. We are located at 13943 102nd Street, Northwest and Southside Township. The property is approximately 0.33 acres, zoned urban rural transition and located on Lake Augusta, which is classified as recreational development. The request initially was to construct a 771 square foot addition to the existing home that would be located within the shoreline building setback, 33 feet from the center line of a local road and 3 feet from the septic absorption area, along with the 512 square foot storage building that would be 58.3 feet from the ordinary high water line of the lake. That was continued from the last meeting so the applicant could reassess the proposal due to concerns with the distance. The addition would be from the septic as well as the storage building distance to the lake. So they did present an updated plan. The updated request shows what appears at least is the footprint of that addition grew in size, maybe 933 square feet in total. But in that case, let's see here. We would end up being, or maybe,
I don't think it grew that much.
was it 881?
It just grew by 2 feet bump out.
It did. It got a little bit larger in size, and what happened was it would scoot a little bit further from the septic. I think it increased, was it to about 7 feet?
Yeah,
You moved it over 4 from the initial,
4.
and this was 3, so we're closer to 7 feet from the actual absorption area, and then it bumped it a little bit closer to the actual road itself. I think I've got their updated plan, right? Yeah. And then their proposal for the building dropped to, was it 384?
Yep.
So, I mean, it's still going to be a little bit further now from the lake. It is going to be 66.5 feet.
Correct.
So that'll pretty much wrap up my overview. I mean, we didn't receive anything additional from township, didn't receive anything additional from the neighbors in the township. They had initially approved the request.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Just open for questions. I think the biggest thing is we'd like to look at what we can do as far as that shed before the winter comes. My wife obviously works remote and she works in the cities right now as a nurse, and so for being a nurse, she needs to have her own private area in order to work from home. So it's more of something that we'd like to get moved forward, but then obviously make this a forever home too. I know you weren't at the meeting last, Bob, but obviously my wife and I, we have a 10-month-old, and then we'd like to make this somewhere we could see ourselves for 50+ years, because my in-laws are all in South Haven, so.
Okay. Is there anybody from the audience that would have a comment or question? Seeing that, Mr. Vick?
Thank you. Travis, how far away from the septic system is that place now?
It's gonna be around 7 feet.
7 feet.
Yep. And then I have my father-in-law is here. He's a custom home builder. He would be the one that would be doing the additions. So if we had any questions regarding, obviously, his care for the house he would not want to do any damage to that septic system or compromise it in any way, so.
The next thing is that septic system was set up for a 2-bedroom house?
Yep, We talked to Scott and Troy, and they said that for the 4-bedroom house, it would need to have that timer installed on it, which
Otherwise,
would be okay with. They said they would, because of this current size of it, it would still be okay. It would just need to have that timer in case it filled up a certain amount where it would click off an alarm, and then we'd have to go get it pumped.
so the drain field is large enough as stated here for a 4-bedroom house? Because I know I read through, it said 2, but,
Yep, yeah, that's when I talked to Scott and Troy.
okay. Okay, so the question would be the 7 foot from the septic still? Because we're 10
That's
was
the
required?
updated. Technically, you're still supposed to be 20 feet if you have like a full basement or foundation like as such.
We won't have a basement. It has to be slab on, so.
Slab on grade. And you could 45 that a little bit to get yourself 10 feet?
Yeah, I mean, we probably could. That might be a little bit more easier for us driving in and out of the driveway.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for us is we just have that access coming from the left, because the driveway on the right we'll get rid of and make green, because as you can see, there's a tree out there and there's a few bushes that we want to keep, just for more aesthetically and looking. And so we'd like to keep as much green out there, so we'd be getting rid of a lot of the driveway to make it on the one side. So it's more about the driving in and out.
'Cause I'd like to see a little more room there, because you will probably be driving back to the shed through there, not only on the septic.
Yep, so if we won't be driving back there as far as, no, I mean, unless it's a lawnmower, which we push lawnmower, but we won't be driving any vehicles back there.
Okay. I gotta take it in kinda, cause
Yeah.
what I read, just new to me now, so
Yeah.
I had some different questions actually, but. I guess I'd like to see what the rest of the board says, and maybe I'll add some comments at the end. Thank you.
Okay, Russ?
So you discussed the septic system and all that. And that was our major concern basically last time.
Yep.
And I think if the county is, that you guys talked about it, and I see no problem with what you did. I guess that was the major concern, is the septic system.
Okay.
I'm done, yeah.
Okay. Dan?
Aaron, with that shed, there was discussion at last meeting about it being in front of the house and stuff, and with it being heated. Now, is that for the size of the shed that's out there? I don't know that I've ever really heard of that or seen that come in front of the board in the past. I mean, is that something that is in compliance? Is not?
Are you referring to the difference between the water-oriented accessory structure?
That's where I'm going with
Yep.
that.
So
because-
technically speaking, and it was a discussion had before the Board of, before applying the Board of Adjustment, so long as lot coverages are met, setbacks are met, which are reduced for a water-oriented accessory structure, you could go up to 250 square feet, but we get this stuff passed down from the DNR and pretty much says right in there, can't be used to be heated or can't have plumbing on the inside. So that's kind of where we came in, and we ran this request after, talking to the applicant, that it would be run as a storage building that's inside of the lake setback. If we're able to do that route, they could heat it. Well, when it comes down to it, now instead of it being 250 square feet max, that could be 10 feet from the lake. You're looking at needing to meet that 100-foot lake setback. So realistically, anything south of the home, which, I mean, you look at where the home's at and where the septic is, pretty much anything in that area needs the variance to be a storage building regardless of size. If you want to heat it in this case.
Yep.
So,
I think that we'd love to put the shed in front of the house and leave as much backyard as possible. We just wouldn't have any driving. There'd be no place we'd be parking on the road, and that's not something that we want to do or even discuss. We'd like to make sure that we can create as much flow of the house and the yard in relation to the neighbors, and so.
I guess that's one of where I'm having a challenge with, is because we're basically putting an office. I mean, that's what it's gonna be used. We're putting an office. This isn't it's on a lake. It's not water-based. It's not, portion of it may have inner tubes in, but we're making an office. Somebody's going to be working out of there down by the lake, and the years I've sat on the board, I've never have heard of it or been part of making an office out in front, out back, or another addition onto the house or something like that. I understand, but we're going to make an office up front, and you know, side yard setback, he's at 12, what is required, Aaron?
It's gonna be 10 feet.
10 feet?
Side
So,
yard.
I mean, we're meeting the side yard setback, but we're still building an office in front of the house on the lakeside. Is that something the board wants to do? Is my question. You know, with the sewer, we have concerns, we've talked about it, there is concerns there. They've moved the house over, so it's tight. And with the surging of the septic, something they're gonna have to deal with. You know, you're adding, septic's built for a 2-bedroom, we're adding 2 more bedrooms onto it. I mean, we're really putting more pressure on that lake on a small lot. If anything fails on the septic because it's a 4-house, and yes, you can surge it and stuff, but we're still putting more pressure on a lake lot. We're turning basically a 2-bedroom lot, 2-bedroom sewer. We're adding an office out front. We're doing a lot. So I still have challenges with it, with what we're trying to do with this small area on a small lake. It's Lake Augusta, and it's on the Clearwater River chain. So, things to be considered.
Okay. I too have concerns with the shed, is why that isn't part of your home.
As far as like building
An
the
office.
the house further out towards, I think,
Or you know, instead of that garage area, maybe you, you know, turn that into office or whatever.
yep, I think the main thing right now is like financially that addition is gonna be a grand undertaking versus installing a shed and putting like a little ductless system in. Is much more like willing to do that recently, financially speaking, to be able to get that so that when this winter comes and then she's able to get in there. So we're willing to maybe knock it down to make it 70 feet from the high water line. Like, are we willing to, I guess, what is your concerns, the size of it? Is it,
Well, I just think of aesthetics, you know, people,
Yeah.
you know, what way it looks. I guess if I had a lake home, I wouldn't want a shed between me and the lake, between my house and the lake. I guess, but that's your call, not mine. But I just, whenever I see a shed that is going to be used for something that's not a shed, all of a sudden it starts looking like a guest cabin, and all of a sudden plumbing shows up in there because it's already heated and insulated. And so all of a sudden the purpose changes after
yep,
today.
Yep, I understand that.
And so those are where my concerns are
Yeah.
coming from, is whereas if it's part of your home, people have offices in their home all the time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the current structure is we don't have, in the current footprint of the house, we don't have a storage room and we don't have an office. So it's more of a, we need a storage room and an office. So it wouldn't just be a 16 by 24 office. It would be 16 by 8, 16 by what as an office, and then the rest as a climate controlled storage, because we do have a lot of stuff that requires climate controlled storage too. So that's the reason for proposing the variance, to make it climate controlled and being able to have a space for my wife to work.
Because, you know, when we look at this, I mean, you're asking for, you know, was it 1, 2, 3, you know, kind of 4 different variances on this lot. And when you get that many variances, you know, it starts to makes you wonder if the lot fits the purpose, you know. Especially with a third of an acre lot, we see those a lot, but we don't see this much going on those small little lots.
I think the biggest thing we wanted is we wanted to envision this place as, okay, we're moving out here, we want to be here, this is a place where my in-laws are from, we're excited, we want to make this our forever home, and we want to make sure we stay within the impervious coverage, make sure we stay in, and we're probably the newest built in that area, so, I mean, most of the houses are like 30 feet from the water, and we're obviously at 100. We're significantly further setback. We are the for this house where there's no one that can see our house. We can't even see the lake from our house. Like, we're on the end of the channel. So unless we cut down 150 trees and ask neighbors, we're not gonna ever see the lake.
Okay. I
I
guess
just
have
want to
a
remind the board really quick that it is a two-part variance request. They were run at the same time. So, I mean, this can be looked at, together, both requests at the same time. They can be looked at separately. So, the board was leaning more towards one or the other, that type of stuff. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we'd also request that they're looked at separately too.
Then, I guess I have a question for Mr. Vick. We've seen other garages and things that close to the lake or to the road. And it shows, we're 28 feet from the road. That should be adequate for turning around and parking and snow removal and that sort of thing.
You can get a full vehicle in there and still not be on the road backing up, you should have view.
Yeah, and they should be able to turn around without backing onto the road.
That is a speed slot. We drop like 50, when you kind of take that little left, you drop about 50 to 75 feet. So the people going around that corner are not exactly going very slow. So that's the concern of ours, is we don't want to build the house so close to the road where if we're like, one day our daughter wants to pull out and someone's punned down and gets her. Like, I think that's why we kind of wanted to propose having the driveway to pull out where you can check both ways and then you can go, because of the nature of that curve.
So you'll be losing the turnaround.
We'd be losing the turnaround if we proposed a larger structure there to get rid of the shed and make it the storage area as part of the house. That's the reason why we proposed the two separate structures. We'd be fine with moving them both up and creating a little bit larger, addition. And then obviously, but then the problem is then we're having that problem down the road. No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, I have a hard time thinking that, if going back to that office inside your home, if, in the wintertime, is she gonna walk that 30 feet back and forth?
It's like 10. It's like 10 feet.
10 feet? Okay.
We'd actually, we'd look at the designing it, we would design it where it would almost tie in with the house. Because the one thing is, we don't want to lose the back of the house with the way it's laid out with the really tall, nice A-frame windows and how the house is laid out. We'd have to completely reconfigure the entire house if we were to kind of affix it to the house, essentially.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else got comments?
I've had my turn, but yeah, I guess is there any way other than that well there, if that could be moved, that you could put that up? If you said 8 foot by 16, could you put a little addition off the corner of the house and redo the well? What I'm just trying to say is, Dan brought up an interesting point when he said heated back there, and then you said about bedding people there, and that's kind of something that we're not supposed to have people staying in that office. And it's heated, that could be later on. So I was wondering if you'd just do a little jet out.
As far
Office
as
attached to the house somewhere.
putting it off the back or because the
So
well,
probably have to move the well, but
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I still look at this as, in our ordinance, we're supposed to come up with a practical difficulty, a challenge, what is the practical difficulty here? I mean, what is on this lot? It's a 3.3 acre lot. The house has already been fit on it, the sewer has already been fit to it, and now we're trying to add more to it. Where is the practical difficulty here I mean, what is something that has been caused that's out of the owner's hands for that practical difficulty? And like you said, we're looking at four different variances here on a small lot. It's a lot. We're asking to do a lot, and again, we're all trying to make this fit in and stuff, but where's the practical difficulty here? I mean, what are we trying to help with for a difficulty? It's everything here that I continue to listen to is I want a bigger house to grow into. I want the office for my wife to work out of. Like Dan and you brought up, you know, 10 years from now, he moves out of here. He has a heated shed out front of his house that now becomes a guest house. Something the board has to consider.
Okay. Well, I'm finished with my comments, I guess. Where does the board want to go from here?
I think maybe it would need to be revisited one more time, and hearing us, I don't know if that shed's gonna work, but it sounds like everybody's in agreement with the.
So I guess no size of any sort of shed behind that house.
What's the
If
heating?
if
that's
the
kinda
heating,
worrying
yeah.
me.
So they're never, that's off the table.
I can't speak for everyone else. In my opinion, though, that there's enough concerns there that if people start staying in there, then it becomes a health issue or a fire and not set up properly. I wouldn't want to go along with approving that.
And then your sewer, even if they're using the house sewer, the sewer becomes too small.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it continues to run into challenges, whether you own it or somebody else owns it down the road. I mean, we have to look at what we're approving isn't just for today or tomorrow. I mean, this is going to be there.
But can you give a variance request conditioning on there's no plumbing going in? It's just a heated and cooled structure, or is that not, I guess, like I said, I'm new to this, so. I mean, the reason we're doing this is we want to stay in here for 50 years, but obviously I can't give you any, you know, and I don't think you guys expect any guarantees of that too, but.
Yeah.
It's all right with the chairman and I speak.
Go ahead.
Like our concern is
Yeah.
that you start having kids sleep over when your kids get older and they start staying in that heated shed.
Yep.
And that's not set
All
up
right. Okay.
for a livable space. So that's my big concern. And
I guess the one question, and obviously this is to deal with more of the neighborhood, is like, we're the furthest setback. We got like every other house in the entire channel is either butted up or right next to the lake. I guess I know it's different and it's different years and whatnot, and things are grandfathered in, but from ours, like we're the furthest out, like having a smaller structure right behind the house that's still outside of either 66 feet, 70 feet, 74 feet. I mean, I feel like we're going to be still like significantly further away than any other livable structure in our neighborhood.
I guess in my opinion, I think the rules have been set for new places to adhere to, and we're not just, keep taking it, because other ones are like that. 'Cause we got the whole county to look at in each decision you make. So I would say, if it was me, I would look at adding that to your house on the side, or whatever you gotta do to get her heated office, or put it in the garage, like Bob had stated.
Okay.
And the shed just be cold.
Yeah, well, I just, if you're building this addition on, whether it's I guess you just have to pick your priorities. If you want an extra bedroom, or does she want an office? And you look at your plans that way, and that way it's contained inside your home, and if you want to talk about a cold storage shed or something like that, that might be different, but, as of right now, I think that just for the sake of moving on, I think you have some choices. You can ask for a continuance, because, well, we could vote. I'm not sure of what
Yeah.
I've heard here today, that you are going to get what you want. Or you could ask for a continuance if you want to go back and rethink this for a while and try again in a month, or maybe in a month from now, you say, you know what? I like the plan that we have, I want you to vote. You can do that. Or we can vote today.
I guess the question that I have, obviously, with, it sounds like the shed being climate controlled will be a no-go no matter what. So with that being said, as far as the addition, if we were to make, you mentioned making a bump out there, unfortunately, that's our kitchen, so we'd again have to reconfigure the whole house. Would it be, I guess, it would almost have to be if we wanted to build that extra office, whatnot, almost having it off kind of the front of the home. Whether it's, I don't know what we're gonna have to look at as far as space, but is that something where it's better if we just propose a bigger structure in the front of the home and leave nothing in the back of the home?
That's for them to design.
Yeah, that's
We're not
not-
here to design a home. I guess you'd have to go and design what you're thinking, hearing what board is, coming with.
How about
now,
how about the design of the addition right now, as we see fit, as it's designed?
I would like to see at least 8 feet between the septic, and you could do a little dop.
Little dop. And we'd be okay with that.
And as far as the road, is he okay with all the setbacks there from the center of the road? I can't see the dimensions.
Oh, center of the road, that's what was mentioned in the staff report. Right now it's 28.5 feet proposed. If you shift it over a foot, I mean, depending on the angle, it might be 27.5 feet. It might only drop a half a foot, actual distance to the center line of the road.
Yeah, I would even suggest moving it, just nip that corner so.
Oh, yeah, if you were to shrink it, then technically it's that northwest corner that's the most, let's say, restrictive. He's further from the northeast corner. So, yeah, if you drop that,
Township approved of it?
he said.
Township approved of that?
Yep, township approved it.
I would be okay with that myself, and,
Yeah, it looks, the way it looks like you're okay from the center line of the road. It looks like, as Mr. Vick had, if you could get 8 feet to the septic. Let's see, what else? Otherwise, it looks like your addition, I think, is, you're far enough from the lake with the home. So you're okay with that. So yeah, so I guess it's the proposed shed is kind of the problem for us right now. So that gives you something to work on.
Could we vote on the addition and continue the shed as two separate?
Yeah, we'd rather do it all at once.
Well, yeah, especially if you are planning on attaching something to the home or reconfiguring the addition, it probably wouldn't be wise for us to do that today.
Yeah, you'd have to either choose to have the motion on everything right now, which could be, approval of both, approval of the addition, denial of the shed portion, whatever. Or you choose to potentially ask for a continuance, and our 120-day deadline, that's December 3rd. We still have a couple meetings before then, so we're not going to have an issue with that.
Okay. Yeah, then I'd like to continue it.
Okay, to the October 4th
Yep.
date?
Yep.
Is that acceptable to you? Okay. Do I have a motion from the board to?
I'll make a motion to extend it to the October 4th meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to continue. Do we have a second?
Continue.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, Abby Robeck.
Morning, gentlemen.
Okay.
Morning.
Aaron, would you like to get us started?
Yep, give me 1 second. I'm still going to write down a few notes from the last item.
So I have, so Abby Robick. Oh,
Wait.
All right, sorry, I'll give a quick little overview here, and I think the board will pass it on over to you. Let's get our PowerPoint back to where this item is. All right. So this specific request, I believe we're located at 7006 Quinn Avenue Northwest in Southside Township. Property we have is about 0.4 acres, zoned urban rural transition and located on West Lake Sylvia, which is classified as general development. This specific request, we're looking at constructing a 933 square foot home that does not meet the minimum width requirements, that is located 65 feet from the ordinary high water line of the lake and located within the bluff. The septic would be 5 feet from the property line as well. A variance is required to construct the 933 square foot footprint home that does not meet the minimum width requirements of 24 feet, 65 feet from the center line, 65 feet is what's proposed from the ordinary high water line of the lake, where 75 feet is required, and it's located in the bluff where there is a 30-foot top of bluff setback. As far as the bluff goes, it was just a really tricky property to do it on. I mean, you could have 10 people do the bluff, it might change slightly. The more restrictive one is what we went with. That's the blue one. I put it as top of bluff V1. There's a potentially more practical bluff. I can't be the one that speaks for that, but that was top of bluff V2 placed on this, or overlaid on that survey. So as far as the septic being 5 feet from the property line, 10 feet is required. Township, they did approve of the request because the new home would have a better setback from the water. There was a cesspool that'd be eliminated and replaced with a new septic system. There was a neighbor that did comment saying there's too many variances being requested, and another commented about the proposed septic location. They didn't want it near the south property line, which I believe it's all staying along that north property line. And they also didn't want them any closer to the lake. So as far as they said, if the home was replaced in the same footprint or behind it, they believed to be appropriate, which I believe is what is also being proposed. Existing building coverage is 4.8% with a total impervious of 5.5. The proposed building coverage is 5.5% and proposed impervious surface is 18%. So that'll wrap up my overview.
Okay, does the applicant have anything they wish to add?
Yeah, so Abby Robeck, my assistant project manager, she's here. Allie Vivold with Cap Custom Homes. And then I have the homeowner of Heidi Pope, she's also here, and then Bernie Miller. So I'll let Heidi start off and then we'll go from there.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for hearing our request today. I am the property owner. The property is not new to me, though. My family has owned the land there, then the small cabin that was there for decades. I grew up going there, as did my children and my nieces and nephews. And we'd like now to, I'd like to build a family home again, so that we could use the property and use the lake, and eventually, as soon as I get my daughter through college, move there as a family. Thank you again for hearing our request today.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll add a few things here. So they came to us and had a house plan. We thought this was gonna be fairly easy. Our intentions all along were to never ask for a variance and be able to fit it on here. When we started looking into it, we initially laid out a septic system, and if you look where soil borings 1, 2, or 1, 4, and 5 are, and 3, we were kind of down in that area. And we had done a job to the south there previously, maybe 20 years ago. And but we weren't aware that well was there. We didn't find the neighboring well to the south. So once we found the neighboring well to the south, it kind of changed our entire drain field area, pushed our drain field up to where it is. So, with that, then we really got limited on where we could do some type of drain field. So then we started having to play around with this house. And, the biggest challenge here is if you look at the angle of the lake and you look at the orientation of the neighboring houses, and you look at the side yards setbacks from where that is, it's almost impossible to design a house that there's no way to design a house in here that could even meet the lake setbacks and have a drain field. So we looked at trying to redesign the house. I think we had 3 or 4 different renditions to that. And initially we had a survey done. We weren't anticipating even a bluff. We weren't even thinking that was a discussion. When you look at this property, there's very little elevation. I mean, there's some, I mean, but it's not like your typical bluff. I mean, a lot of these bluffs, you know, you can tell it's just drops down from the lake. So, but the thing with the bluff is, you know, if there's a bluff system basically in the area, which could be down, you know, a quarter mile and continue, as long as if the slope is over 18% somewhere, then that bluff just keeps continuing. So you can get into areas that are, you know, and then you start having existing retaining walls and you start trying to measure this, then all of a sudden this 18% just can continue all over the place and still be classified as a bluff. But I would say it's, on this property, it's, you know, it's not really like a bluff, you know what I mean? It meets the criteria. You know, me and Aaron, we went through this, and it's, you know, they said they really struggled, can have two different answers. Almost, without a doubt, this whole area has been already graded and altered. So it's not like we're preserving a bluff that has never been changed or whatever. This has all been established. So with that, we look at how can we do this with the least amount of variance, least impactful. You know, we were hoping to not have to do any variances for the septic system. We could have pushed this to 60 feet from the lake and get away from a variance for the drain field. But I think it's, you know, not, to me, it'd be better to be back 65 and ask for another variance for the drain field than it would be to go up to 60. And so, you know, when you look at the areas, I think one thing to consider is when you look at the existing buildings and house, the house 724, there's a shed that's 122 square feet. The proposed house with the entryway is going to 963 square feet. So, you know, 120 some square feet increase to the house it's, you know, very modest, small, not trying to do that much. You know, and as part of that, if you look at the setbacks of the existing house, where that is compared to where we're proposing the house, it's a significant increase. Couple other things, I did look at the possibility of, you know, looking at the variance from the house to the drain field, or instead of the drain field to the property line. And I think, and sometimes we would ask for 7 from the property line and, you know, 17 from the house or whatever. In this case, due to the situation, we have to get tanks in there. And so if I move that drain field closer to that house, I'm running out of room to get tanks in there. We just, so we chose to keep that 20 feet in there. And I almost forgot that I did this, but I did prepare a couple exhibits just to point out a few things so it's kind of easier to understand. And
You can pass them on, otherwise we got the document camera up as well, so you can point to yours.
Give me 2. No.
And I'll just explain, let's see. So I think this Exhibit A just kind of shows, right now, kind of the building areas and what is not meeting the lake setback. So currently the existing house is 295 square feet that doesn't meet it. And we're at 58 square feet that doesn't meet it. So, you know, yeah, we're at 65 feet, you know, but there's only 58 square feet that don't meet the 75. And without building some kind of trapezoid or something, it gets really, and this actually, the way this house design is, kind of does compromise the whole layout of shifting it over anyways. So then if you look at Exhibit B, I kind of looked at other areas not meeting the setbacks, including the side, not just the lake. The other one was the lake. So, when and I didn't include the bluff in an exhibit because I'm very confused at, how to even look at that right now, just because it's pretty dynamic situation. But just looking at the side, this includes the side setbacks and the lake setbacks. So we're going from existing, including the lake and the side setbacks, there's 466 square feet, which is the majority, more than half of the existing structure. And when we look at the deck, the little deck that they have out front, and include that with the building, we have 145 square feet that does not meet that setback from the side yards in the lake. Another thing that I'll point out, just maybe aware that, there is nothing that would stop them from rebuilding. If this variance if it doesn't get approved, they can rebuild the cabin where it sits in that same footprint, or even slightly move it, but not increase the living space. So ultimately, to me, when I look at this, they're asking for a little bit more square feet in the house, and asking for a little bit of a deck that doesn't meet the setbacks. Either situation, I think, whether it's whatever situation you want to call the bluff, the existing house is basically in the bluff or in the bluff setback. And in either situation, I would say that the new house would be, majority of it's going to be in the bluff or bluff setback, whatever you choose. So they could rebuild that exact same house, exact same square footage, and, whether it's, comes down to it might be 724 square feet or whatever. And they're asking to increase that sum in hopes, by moving back and making some other concessions there, so.
Yeah, and I was gonna point out the assessor photos is the best I have available, but, if it helps any, it appears at least from the photos, it's relatively flat right where the home is.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Anybody else? Is there anybody from the public that would like to have a comment or question? Please come up. State your name to Cheryl for the record.
My name's Bob Bruce. I own the property to the south, and I'm now seeing more of your details. Most of my comments, I think, are pretty much addressed. I just wanted to confirm that my primary concern was our wellhead and so forth is right behind the garage there, about 5 feet from the lot line. So, and your lot runs downhill from there. So my concern was if that septic field or something is too close to that, there's a contamination risk. And I think my other thing that I mentioned, the fact that you're moving the house back and so forth, it's pretty much in the same location. My concern was if it moves forward, it's in the line of sight of both cabins on both sides. So I think the proposal looks good to me if you're comfortable with where the septic goes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else have comments or questions from the audience? If not, Russ, let's get started.
I like the exhibit deal, I like that, A and B. You can't maybe bring the house just a little bit ahead towards the lake, back away from the lake just a little bit more?
Well, I would say that there's maybe a possibility, but it's going to increase and add other variances.
So as of right now, what is there? Just the one variance? Or is there two or three there?
Well, I guess as far as our office is concerned, let me just toggle back over to this one here. Specifically, we've got the width requirement of the home. Technically, you're supposed to be a 24-foot by 24-foot box. It just slightly misses that, but I mean, based on the proposed size and the shape of it, I mean, it's kind of hard to hit that anyways. You know, anytime you're going to be within 75 feet of the lake, you're looking at a lake setback. So whether it's the 65 feet to the deck right now, or whether you're 70 feet, still going to need that variance. And then technically speaking, as far as the bluff we're using, which is the blue line, really anywhere that the home's placed in there, you're going to be looking at the bluff. And then the septic, the only septic variance as of right now is the 5 feet to the property line from the absorption area. If you were to shift the home to the west a little bit further from the lake, you wouldn't necessarily alleviate the lake variance, you would definitely improve upon it, but then you would have a septic variance that the home would be within 20 feet of the absorption area.
I guess I'm not going to go any further with it. I'll leave the other board members what they say.
Dan?
Yeah, personally, I'd like to do a site inspection because we've got a bluff, and looking at the picture, we've done this before, and I mean, Bernie's well versed in our bluff. You know, is it a bluff? Isn't it a bluff? So I'd like to go out there. I mean, we are looking at new construction, and I understand what they're trying to do. They're moving it back. I mean, everything they're doing, I applaud. I mean, we're trying to improve upon the lot, improve the setback, put a new sewage system, but it's got that word bluff in it. So for me to, you know, vote yay or nay, I'd like to see it, you know, are we flat? I mean, we've got an existing home there. So are we going to improve it on? I'd like to go look at it, put it that way.
Okay. Mr. Vick?
Yeah, I got a few questions that would help on that anyways. What was the proposed impervious then total?
The proposed is 18%.
18%. Any plans of a future garage on it, or?
Well, let me add a couple things.
Okay.
First off, when you ask about the impervious, the survey did not count a driveway at all because there's really not like an evident, real obvious driveway there. So the big jump in the impervious from the existing of 5.5 is that they're not counting a driveway. I mean, obviously people drive in there, whether it's grass or whatever it is. If you're driving on the surface, it's a driveway. It's just not easy to identify when the survey was done if there was a driveway. So the owner did ask, you know, is there a possibility of putting a garage in the future? And we had not really discussed that until this morning, but there is actually area out towards the road on the north side of the driveway where a person could put that. So, and that would be the only spot. It can't go up to the house. It's not going to be able to be attached to the house. It would have to be a separate garage. And I really think that there is a nice spot over there for it that doesn't work for the septic and is really not very desirable spot to put a house either. So,
Okay. Yeah, that was just something, the existing house is how far off the lake setback?
can you see it on the survey, Aaron?
Yeah, I can pull that up here.
I can't read it, and I can scale it right here. Looks like 50 feet.
50 feet, okay.
Yep, the closest point. Right.
Then I've been putting a lot of trees in and then staying away from my septic, so I wonder, when you propose 5 feet from the lot line, what's to stop the neighbor from putting a tree that would intrude on that?
Well, if
See, from our perspective, zoning, there's nothing. If
Yeah.
the neighbor wanted to plant a tree along the property line, stays on their property, you know, it's what it is.
Even though the roots would go in and plug up their septic?
It is what it is. I mean, there might be a neighborly conversation that could be had prior, but our office doesn't have regulations on,
Okay.
whether they can or can't plant the tree
I
there.
was just wondering if you could educate me on that a little bit too.
well, what I will say this, and that's the right time of the year to bring this up because we get lots of phone calls, and I can predict right when the growing season stops every year. Okay, because when the trees and the grass stop sucking out of the drain fields, I know within a week because people have problems. And, you know, we're already starting to get some of them calls right now. And we've had many situations where we go out to someone's property to look at their septic system. their septic systems for an old cabin. It's worked fine. They lived there in the summer, let's say. It's worked fine. They had this big maple tree. They had it cut down, and now their drain field don't work. Okay, and I said, well, well, I planted that tree along with all these trees. Well, that tree that's right by the drain field is this big, and all the other trees are a foot big. So I'm a firm believer that they have a symbiotic relationship, and I think that the trees help the drain fields in a lot of situations. Some of the problem is that the roots of certain trees always are seeking water. If they find water, they tend to stop, and they don't create a problem. Like if they get in a tank and they got their water, then that's fine, then they're happy. But when they don't, or you have a drain field that's being sporadically used on the weekends and it goes dry, then it keeps sending out roots to try to find a constant water source. So I actually think that, a lot of septic systems, a lot of the water from septic system gets taken up by trees and grass and evapotranspiration in the summer months during the growing season. So I don't see that as a huge problem. A lot of times, we'll try to save, when we do a design, a lot of times we try to save as many trees as possible. Nice oak tree, it's like, well, it's the only spot. We're only 3 feet away. Your choice is you either cut it down or you put it there and see if it lives. A lot of times they'll survive. It's surprising. Sometimes they won't. It varies depending where you're at. Up by Monticello, we see pine trees, and I see roots come 300 feet into a tank all the way across the yard. There ain't a tree within 300 yards, and it'll come right into both sides of the tank, and there'll be a root ball this big in the tank. So it depends on the situation, but we really don't see a huge problem with trees. So I don't have any concern with that. That's probably might be a good thing here.
Do you think that wouldn't hurt if a neighbor put a tree went 5 feet away?
Well, the neighbor's drain field is right next to it, just to the north. There is a big tree there, and on this property, kind of just towards the road from this drain field. And my guess is that them roots are feeding off the neighbor's drain field, already. So.
Yeah, I seen that tree too. And along with Dan, I would like to do a site visit too, but I just wanted to get those questions answered, so thank you.
Okay. It's helpful that you're here to explain because, I too, when I was talking about the bluff, I was counting the contours and I go, boy, you come up out of the lake and then it's not too bad, But when you do the reading, you're in the bluff. And so right away, I'm thinking of the one we just had in Cokato Lake, which we denied because, it was in the bluff. It wasn't in the setback from the bluff. It was in the bluff. And so when we read about this one being in the bluff, right away, denials are all over my face because I'm thinking that. So I think a site inspection might be good. The only thing is that if we start approving things within the bluff, we know that the guy from Cokato Lake is going to be back and say, why did you do this one on Lake Sylvia that was in the bluff and not the one on Cokato Lake? So I'm concerned about that. I'm okay with the 65 feet on Lake Sylvia. We've done other ones at 65 feet before. Just a question for Mr. Miller is, you're 5 feet from the side setback. Could the absorption area or pressure bed be banana-shaped and stay 10 feet away from the property line?
Yeah, so and we'd have to get kind of deep into the septic design to show you why that is. So when my guys first went out there and did borings and then came back in, they're like, this isn't like soil from Lake Sylvia. Lake Sylvia is typically very sandy, lots of rocks, whatever. Every boring is different here. So it's, there could be some more flexibility if that wasn't the case. So the thing is with being able to put a system in here, we have limitations on how the maximum depth the system can be. We have limitations on the minimum depth the system can be. And we have limitations on how high we need to be above evidence of periodically saturated soil. So when we have all these borings and everything's different, and you look at it all, it took me forever to try to figure out how we can make something fit in here. And it is still on the side hill. So I don't, I'd like to keep the lower side of the drain field still in the ground, but the upper side can't be more than 4 feet in the ground. So then I start to try to look at how to do that. And there is a little flexibility how to configure this. And normally we would do, instead of a 14-foot wide drain field, we'd do a 15 or a 16 just because it goes the increments that the pipe and the way it's set up. But we've totally designed this to basically we in the process of doing this, I would take, we'd work through a house back and forth with the house. I'd look at a drain field and say, no, we need to keep changing the house. We need to make this better. We don't meet that setback. What if we did this? And then go back and look at the drain field and say, okay, in order to get the 700 square foot required by the county, I need to, we need to push this house this way. And, ultimately we landed on having that deck at 65 feet. And then it's like, can I get and then by turning the house slightly, I'm able to get the 700 square feet to fit in there and get that drain field to work with all the elevation. So it's not just, I wish it would have been better, a little bit more consistent soil. It would have been a lot easier to probably fit it in. I can't take away, a person can still go under 700 square feet if we want, just like the 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom thing. The thing is that, and we probably won't need a variance for it. And in this case, we'd still have time dosing on this system no matter what, so it doesn't matter. But I feel like in so many situations where we have narrow lots on the lake, 10 feet, I'm fairly confident that in the inception of the code, the 10 feet was there because we're not having it surveyed. Let's be 10 feet from where we think where the line is, so we're safe, okay? You still own that 10 feet, and then you take 10 feet out both sides also, and then neighbors start putting wells right next to your lines and stuff. That really ties you up. So to me, now we have things surveyed. The neighbor has an established system. His buildings are established. We don't have to have too much concern with future developments. What it's going to do here is wells out by the lake. It's not going to affect any new well for him. It's like, to me, it's an obvious spot to utilize some space and ask for a variance.
Okay.
Just point out too quickly that a Wright County environmental health officer, I had them review the septic. They didn't see any necessary, major concerns that jumped out at them.
Okay. When I look at your diagram, I failed to see where do we fail to meet the 24-foot width?
So it's, I'll show you on here. So technically speaking, our current zoning administrator, how the interpretation is yes. Oh, it's hard to see out here. Anyways, speaking, the 24 by 24 means there has to be a 24-foot by 24-foot box inside of the principal structure walls. So while, yes, technically the full length and the width of it do exceed 24 feet in each dimension, the zoning administrator does say that, based on, you can see the jog in the home, I guess. If you were to drop the 24 by 24-foot box in there would be a sliver of it that is not inside the principal structure walls.
Huh.
Kind of, yeah. When we first started with this project, we started straight, then we did a triangle. And then when we started to realize, well, we have this bluff and we have this and we have this, that's how we got to this offset shape. So then we can meet that side yard setback, pull back from the lake, that's why that is.
And I'll add one more thing to that is if you imagine if we didn't have that offset, right, then what's going to happen is we almost have to turn that house more parallel to the north line, and the view of the house is going to look right exactly at the neighbor's house. So, and I think that a site visit, I think it's a good idea for you because you'll see the uniqueness of this lot, and I think that you'll see that it's not a overly concerning bluff, and and with consideration to the fact that they could just put it back right where it is next to the property line in the bluff. And, I think you'll see it's a big improvement here.
Does the existing house have a basement?
I don't-
It has a crawl space, doesn't it?
I've never been in a crawl space. It's actually, it has 2 tiny bedrooms. There's no, and a bathroom that's just a toilet and a sink, no closets in it anywhere. It really was just functioned as a cabin, whereas I'm looking to have a home. That's why I wanted a little bigger.
Yeah, but the existing home doesn't have anything that's in the ground.
Just a foundation crawl space.
Sure, sure. But the new house will.
The new house would, yep.
Okay. Well, we'll probably have more questions coming up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to continue this, make a motion to continue this to the October meeting
Okay,
and due to a site inspection.
all right. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue to the October 4th, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, October 4th meeting. And somewhere between now and then, the board will have a site inspection. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that site inspection will be scheduled at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Will that be, announced, I guess, or anything?
Yeah, so either way, you can choose to stick around to the end. You could contact our office, maybe sometime in the afternoon. We can get you that information. It will be sent over to you guys as well.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, item 4, Jed Kangas, please come up. Give your name to Cheryl for the record.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we have the Jed Kangas request here. This request is located at 5604 County Road 30 Southeast in Franklin Township. The property, it is about 1.07 acres in zone general agriculture. The request is to construct a 12-foot by 40-foot addition onto the existing 30-foot by 40-foot detached building that is 80 feet from the center line of the county road. Variance is required to construct this 12-foot by 40-foot addition onto the existing detached building 80 feet from the center line of the road because 130 feet is required. In 2022, the referenced 30-foot by 40-foot building was approved by the Board of Adjustment to be 80 feet from the center line of the road, and the Planning Commission also approved a non-commercial contractor's yard on the property. The township, they noted that they approve of the request. The Highway Department requests that the addition does not get any closer to the county road than the existing building, which it appears it does not, and there was no written neighbor responses received. So that'll wrap up my overview.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
No, I got nothing else to add.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Jed Kangas. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone from the audience have a comment or question? Okay. If not, we'll bring it up here. I believe, Dan, you're,
I guess because I know I was part of the variance to put the shed there, and I was part of the conditional use permit of that portion. By putting the addition on, is that going to be housing more of the equipment that, instead of it being outside? I mean, what is the need for the lean-to?
Yeah, more pretty much material storage. And anything that's outside on the north side of the building is now gonna be inside that building. So pretty much just storage.
I did confirm with the zoning administrator that would not cause any or raise any concerns for the existing conditional use permit, so long as the enclosed area or the lean-to portion is storing material, because there's already outdoor storage allowed in that area. What it would not allow for is to now add an additional 12 by 40 outside storage area that wasn't actually approved. So it's just going to take up, if approved, existing area that was approved for outdoor storage.
That was gonna be somewhat my next question, because now we're adding on to what we originally gave a variance for and approvals for the size shed. Now we're increasing that size of that shed, so either we're increasing the business or we're still maintaining what we already have. Is that correct, or?
I guess the variance was not for the size of the building, it was because it's within 80 feet of center line of road versus 130. I went to go put these permits in 3 weeks ago, and it dawned on me, oh, I'm still within 130. You know, the front of the building's 80, you add another 30, we're still 110. So we're, even though it's north side of the building, further from the road, you know, I'm here because of that, it's still within the 130. As far as the building size goes, I'm not requesting any variance on that. That's still within the allowable size. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess, you know, where my mind is going is that, okay, if I mean, this is only 2 years ago. 2 years ago, if we'd be in the same situation with the shed at this size with the lean-tos, would we still approve it? You know, I mean, it gets to that point, are people asking for things today, they can get the minimum, then we'll add on, then we'll add on, and then we'll add on, and just keep, and I don't want to be part of that. So, as far as it being on, it's on the other side of the road. Do I see a problem with it? As long as it doesn't conflict with his consisting conditional use permit, I can see no problem with it. I just don't want it to be a continual thing to keep adding on to a variance.
Mr. Vick?
As far as square footage for that property, he'll be fine with the other shed too that he's got on there?
Yeah, the only variance being requested here is
Size to the road.
the county road setback, which is the same one they requested when they initially installed that building.
So like many things, I've built stuff and then I go, "Ah, I should have done 2 feet there." So I can see where an error could have happened and not done that intentionally, and I understand Dan's point real well, because we get that a lot, but on a shed that far from the road and the highway department's fine with it, I guess I'm okay with it.
Okay. Russ?
I have to agree with the other board members that it's in there, and the county has no problem with it. I think I have to follow the other board members here.
Are you gonna remove the wall between the lean-to? I assume that that this is gonna be, this lean-to is gonna be enclosed, correct? It's not gonna be just a roof?
yeah, it'll
Or
be,
is it enclosed? Is it enclosed or is it open on the sides?
no, it's enclosed, but more or less cold storage. So there will be an opening between two of the posts. You know, this is a post frame building, so no structural issues, no headers. It'll just be a simple opening between two of the posts to access this lean-to addition.
Okay, okay. So most of the wall will remain intact?
Everything but 8 feet, correct?
Sure, okay. All right. It's on the back, I guess you would say the north side of the building. That goes back to my question, to Dan's question, I was on the board at that time in 2022, would have I approved what is now, a 36? No.
42.
Yeah, but have I that size of a building 100 or less than 130 feet from the road, and I probably would have, so, I guess I'm good to go with it. Board, where would you like to,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to construct a 12-foot by 40-foot addition onto an existing 30 by 40-foot detached building that is 80 feet from the center line of the county road, and it is on the back side of the shed, further away from the county road, I want to make note. And site plan noted as Exhibit A, and building plans noted as Exhibit B.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the request. Any further addition, or any further discussion, excuse me? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Now, item 5, Eric Robeck.
Morning, Eric
Could
Robeck.
you give your name to Cheryl for the record?
Eric Robeck.
Okay, and
All right, I will give a little bit of an overview. There was a couple other prior requests on this property, so this overview might be just a little bit longer just to run through. But basically, this request, it is located on Gillard Avenue, southeast in Rockford Township. I believe there's 2 addresses out there. Was 2 old lots at some point that were combined into one. The property is 0.31 acres, zoned urban rural transition, and located on Lake Charlotte, which is classified as general development. In 2006, a variance request was withdrawn seeking a 10-foot by 25-foot 2-story screen porch addition to the dwelling. That was 18 feet from the ordinary high water line of the lake, 8.7 feet from the west side yard. The request at that time was 17.6% building coverage. In 2008, another variance request, they did withdraw, not this specific applicant, just giving an overview of the prior request, seeking to convert a 130 square foot addition. That would be 10 feet from the ordinary high water line, 8.4 feet from the east property line, and 46.5 feet from the center line of the township road. At that time, yeah, that one was withdrawn as well. So currently the building coverage is 16.6% and existing impervious coverage is 33.9%. The request is to construct a 22.5 by 27 foot detached storage building with an 812 roof pitch. That would be 46 feet from the lake and 32 feet from the road. Proposed building coverage on this one is 17.9% and proposed impervious to be the same at 33.9. Variance is required to construct the 22.5 by 27 foot detached storage building with the 812 roof pitch because the maximum for lots under 1 acre is a 612. It would be 46 feet from the lake where 75 is required and 32 feet from the road where 65 is required. As far as the board's aware, you know, and all these requests, building coverage is still the same. You have a maximum allowance of 15% and a maximum impervious coverage of 25%. So proposed is 17.9 building coverage, and then the existing impervious would stay the same at that 33.9. The township did approve of the request by unanimous vote. We received quite a few neighbor comments, and they were all in favor. Neighbor commented stating that they would like for the applicant to have a useful working garage, as the building they have now cannot be used as a garage. They said that a new usable garage would benefit the neighborhood. Another neighbor supports the request to rebuild and enlarge the existing garage that is in despair. They believe that the request is reasonable based on the size of their lot and location for the replacement. They believe it will improve the property. Another neighbor supports the request as it would add visual improvement to the applicants and their property. Another neighbor commented the property or proposed request would be a visual improvement not only on their property but also for the neighborhood where they all live. So that pretty much wraps up my general overview. I was going to go over a couple things quick. On the screen up there, you can kind of see St. Michael. So they've got the city of St. Michael jurisdiction, which is actually, you know, about half the lake, and then Rockford Township, the other half. The applicants in Rockford Township, they're subject to what the county has is the 15% building and 25% impervious. City of St. Michael, as we know, we had that applicant last year who brought it up a few times. You know, they don't have the building coverage up in the city of St. Michael, but they have the 25% impervious. So there's that. And then on this one here, it's a little hard to see, but from the initial survey, they have the existing garage with a patio. The proposal isn't to get any closer to anything. All it's going to do is they just wanted to fill in the patio area with the building, a new building, essentially.
And pivot it just so it's parallel with my house. It's off like a couple degrees.
do you have anything else you'd like to add?
One thing I just learned last week, I keep learning more and more. Years ago, at some point, the township raised the road. And when they did that, all the grading's all off. We want to correct all that. I'm going to pay for the neighbor's driveway to get raised up where it should be, because she's got a dip. All the water accumulates in her driveway, and it accumulates right next to the driveway going to this building. So we want to just correct something that's been incorrect for quite a while.
Okay.
And obviously, we use this building for my wife's vehicle, lake storage, all of that.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, is there anyone from the audience that would have a comment or a question? Seeing none, Mr. Vick?
Thanks, sir. Mr. Rollback, right? Or-
Correct.
or- Is there any way you can reduce the 33.9% impervious?
I could reduce the main home driveway since we won't be parking there anymore. I could reduce, everything else is kind of hardscape patio that have been there forever. That's the biggest thing I could do.
Could that be totally removed and get us down around the 25?
It would be
Closer?
odd, but it could be done. You know, I
Is
don't
there
know.
a garage in the existing house?
That is something I didn't mention. Prior to us, somebody turned the garage into living space.
Okay,
Yeah, so we don't have an attached garage.
okay,
We don't really have a garage at all.
okay.
This wasn't a garage. It had a 3-foot man door on the roadside and a 3-foot man door on the left side. You can see in the picture.
Sure. And that's low to the road? So you're gonna
Yes.
be bringing in a lot of fill to raise it up?
Yes,
or-
yep.
okay. Just looking at that, I thought, what, and the 8, okay, the pitch is a little bit tough for me too with the 8, because then
Yeah.
we're gonna have an upstairs area.
No, I just asked for that. If I could show you just one picture. I want a roof with some dormers coming out of it, and I'm not smart enough to figure out what that pitch is gonna be. I kind of want it to, can I approach?
Well, if you got the document camera too,
Oh,
you
I
can,
don't, okay, yeah.
go.
It's more just a roof line similar to this, or I think I had some drawings.
So you won't have any,
No.
trusses in there that can
Nope.
carry weight?
It might have a tall ceiling in the middle, but it wouldn't have a floor system.
Okay.
Yeah, it might look like the drawing, it might look like this. I don't know what this thing's gonna cost yet, so it might be a box with a roof.
My next thing was, we are how far off of the road edge? It says center of the road, but how far? Because it's just so darn close to the road, you won't be able to
Yeah.
park a car out in your driveway, 'cause-
Yeah, we already do, you know, in that driveway, you know, mostly for events, not daily. I know my wife's expedition fits, but I don't have that exact dimension. Yeah.
so my question then would be, what is the setback for a garage from the lake in that? 'Cause if he's gonna be redoing it all, could he push it back a little bit?
towards the lake, not as an exact replacement because they are inside the lake setback currently. So like right now, no board of adjustment needed, right? You can do an exact replacement, brand new, but it would have to be in the same spot because of their distance to the center line of the road and distance to the lake. Either way you move it, you're gonna make one more conforming and one less conforming. So it'd be up to the board of adjustment if they were to do anything. They could allow for things to be moved. I think the applicant just proposed it at the same distance from both.
Yes.
So I can get a rough distance from the edge of the road according to the survey. Let's see here.
And if I don't get the variance, it's gonna become a new structure, the same size. Sure. So,
I didn't know if there was a different setback from the lake for a
yeah,
garage. than-
I don't match any of those. All I have is the right side. I
Okay,
have an extra foot.
let's push closer to the home and eliminate the other garage is what I was trying, or driveway is what I was thinking, but. Cause you're using for a boathouse and garage.
Lake storage,
Lake
yeah,
storage,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, my wife's vehicle.
Survey showed about 45 feet. I just want to double check on Beacon to see what the approximate distance is from the existing building.
Otherwise, it's gonna be all taking the footprint that's on there with that patio, right?
Correct.
Bigger.
Yep, that's all I wanna do is, where the patio is, have that be garage.
Cause when I look at it, it's a 33.9 impervious and the 17.9,
Yep,
I'd drive that down.
yeah.
I don't know, I guess I'd like to see what the rest of the board has to say.
This survey might have been printed off on a little different size paper because that's what I wanted to question. I think it's closer to probably maybe 24 feet, 25 feet from the edge of the road.
Yeah.
So according to Beacon, and that's what I would rather go with.
It's sitting at 65 from the lake or
46.
No, right now we had, what did I have noted on here?
46?
Yeah, 46 feet. So
never
it's
read
not
these things.
necessarily getting any closer.
Okay.
It's just not getting any further.
Sure.
Okay, Russ?
I have no comments here.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding, correct, Aaron, he can replace what he has, correct?
Yep, exact replacement. That is something that we allow even if they're in the lake setback and the road setback and every side yard setback and over on lot coverages just because of what the state says. Now, if the building's been removed, you've got 12 months to replace it. Voluntarily removed.
It is gone.
Yep, which I think you mentioned you took down recently.
Yeah, we
So
finished 10 days
technically, you
ago or
have within
something.
12 months to apply for the building permit to do that exact replacement. If you decided you were not going to replace it and that 12 months expires and you didn't obtain a variance, which is good for 3 years, technically you lose its grandfathered in status. So just keeping that for the record's sake.
Yep. I guess for me, looking at it, when we're at 17% and 33%, we're multiple percentages over where we need to be. And we've always tried to get people to reduce it and come down with it. I mean, he can replace what he has. I don't have a problem with that because it's there. But I guess I'm not in favor of being so far over with 33% coverage and 17% impervious without trying to improve that or getting it down to the 15 and the closer to a 25.
Impervious won't change. It's going to be the
That's why
same.
I'm saying that,
Yep.
you know, so you can replace what you have.
Yep.
But I'm not willing to give you any more. I mean, we have a whole county. We have how many hundreds of thousands of lakes in Wright County? And I personally am one vote. I've always tried to keep it at the 15 and the 25 according to the ordinance. And ask people to either reduce something, take something away, to get something new. We're a long ways over. So that's, I guess, where I'm coming from. I'm not in favor.
Okay. So the 812 is pitch on the building is just a want.
It's kind of a dream if I can afford it, yes. So that's nothing that I care deeply about.
There's no, extra functionality because of that.
Nope, just architectural appearance.
Okay. What size is the building, or what size was the building that was there?
22 by 19, I think. 22 and a half by 19.
Okay. And so I assume that if you were just gonna replace what you had there, that you would have garage doors and you would
Correct.
for parking your vehicle inside
Yep.
and that.
Yep.
sort of thing. Yeah. As long as I haven't been on the board all that long, but as long as I've been on there, I don't think we've ever approved something with this far over the, so you're on the impervious coverage and the building coverage. I mean, I've seen this board argue at 16% building coverage and ask people to cut it down. And the same way with the impervious coverage, we've seen, 26, 27%, and we've asked them to cut it down.
Yep.
So that kind of leaves you with how this board feels about that. I guess so you have some decisions to make. Do you want to replace with what you've got at the same footprint that you have? Or do you want to take some time and try to get a larger building, but then reduce impervious? And I don't know, what else you could do for building coverage to get building coverage down? He hasn't got much to take away, really, does he?
Yeah, I think as far as building coverage goes, there's really nothing. Impervious, I can't really speak, but I mean, impervious is usually the one that's a little bit easier without telling someone they got to rip their house down.
Right. Yeah. So, or we could vote today, or you could withdraw and just build with what you got, the size that you have.
Yep. And I just assume it doesn't matter that I own 2.5 acres across the road. None of that probably counts into the equation.
Well, that's what we're going with, is that you got the 0.31 acres on the lake side of the
Yes.
road, and that's the parcel that, we have to deal with. I suppose if the other parcel must be a separate parcel then on the other
Yes.
side of the road.
Yep.
If they were joined, I don't know, as a common
Doesn't
parcel.
matter. We still have to consider the roadway is the kind of the split between impervious, or
Okay.
we factor everything, let's say, on the lake side versus the road side.
I see.
Individually for lot coverage purposes. So
Okay.
that's a Board of Adjustment policy. It's not just like our office choosing to do so.
All right.
Uh,
Mr.
May I
Dick?
ask,
Go ahead, Dan.
may I ask Aaron one question?
Sure.
If you were to remove all of the driveway going into the existing house, how close would he become on the impervious?
We can do an approximate. I'm not a surveyor, so I'm not
approximate.
out on site. Driveways
I
fluctuate.
think I
all the
had it
time.
on that sheet I turned in to you. I don't know if you have that.
Yeah, we can use that one. See if I put that one in the or in the PowerPoint or not. No, okay. It'd be in the board packet, but we will pull it up. Let's see here.
I guess where I'm going with it is if we can make a slight improvement on impervious, I'm always for that. He's gonna have that patio there in the garage, so his impervious is what it is. But if you remove that driveway and push the other driveway in line, so get rid of any extra on the sides of it,
Yep.
I would probably go with it if we got a bonus of not having this driveway over there and reduce the impervious substantially.
Mr. Mall, you had a question?
Well, it was brought up that you own property on the other side of the road.
Yep.
Garage there.
Does the garage fit over there? Is that all swamp or?
No, I have a building there.
I mean, for me, you completely remove that off of that property, you move it onto the other side, you gotta cross the road to get to your car, I understand that. It's not
That's-
convenient.
yeah, no.
But we're reducing our lot coverage, we're improving upon lake setback, we're improving on lake quality. He owns property on the other side of the street. I mean, again, where is the hardship, the practical difficulty here? We're supposed to be trying to protect water quality in Wright County, making a bigger building here, more roof coverage here, not improving absorption rates, there's no stormwater plan here. I mean, these are all things we ask every applicant and work through. And we have property on the other side that if we need a building, move it away from the lake. We echo that almost in every applicant.
I just don't see any reason for him to remove this building other than to build it right back on the same.
Yeah, and that's fine, he's allowed to do
We
that.
don't gain nothing as a county.
No, but he's allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I was just gonna point out the number. It's about 5.6%, the driveway. So the driveway for the home.
5.6.
So if you were to take that, I mean, you would drop below 15%, or you'd go from that 33.9% minus 5.6% gets you to 28.3. It's not necessarily 25%.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but if I can get him down to 28.3, and he's still gonna be the same footprint as what is existing, I think that's a favorable thing to the watershed area there.
I still see it as him being 3% over on building coverage.
Yeah, otherwise he's,
And we've held other people to a lot less than 3% over building coverage.
so he could, I don't know how Russ feels, but I feel if I'm gaining 5.6% of impervious on it, it's a bonus for the county and, but
Well, Mr. Roback, it goes back to your court. Which would you like to do? Would you like to
So-
continue to come up with a new plan? Or would you like us to vote? Would you like just to build back with the size that you have?
I guess, I just want to clarify my options. So I could remove my driveway, which I'd have to ask for a continuance to talk to my wife. We've never talked about that. God, sorry, I forgot what other options were. Could I ask to have the pivot and the 9-foot sidewalls and just go with that? Or is that, do all three things have to be qualified to increase it? pivot it, and 9-foot sidewalls.
No, I mean, the Board of
The
Adjustment.
three things I asked for.
Could technically just approve, all of them, none of it, or part of it, right? So they
Okay.
might, they could, as an example, say, we're okay with the size, we're not okay with the roof pitch. I
Yep.
think the only variances we really had on file here were the 812 roof pitch, which is something new, essentially that isn't there. The existing lake setback, existing road setback, yes, those are variances being requested, but they're essentially existing. The new lot coverage would be the 17.9% building coverage from the 16.6. So filling in that small patio area, that is where the new variance comes in. And then your impervious is, I mean, it's technically included in the variance request because it's over 25%. So
One more thing, Aaron, if I may.
Okay.
Is that shed still there now, existing, that one that you're gonna delete, or is that gonna delete if we?
No, that shed's been gone for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yep.
I didn't know if that was something else.
No, that I tore that down
Size.
years ago.
Okay.
So, Mr. Roback, the ball is still in your court. What
Yep.
would you like to, how would you like to us to proceed? Would you like us to
I'm doing the
vote
math in my
on the
head.
proposal? Or would you like to continue it? Or would you like to withdraw?
I think I'm gonna ask for a continuance. I'm gonna probably reduce the size of the building and talk to my wife about getting rid of the driveway, the original driveway. So I'd like to ask for a continuance.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve a continuance until the October 4th, I believe it is. And then you would have a full 5, for maybe you have 5 people too. So,
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made to continue this item until October 4th. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. I don't see how he's addressed any of these issues, so I will oppose that.
Okay.
Okay, so you're continued to,
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
there's no additional fee, anything like that. You will get notice from our office saying it's been continued. As far as if you do update any of your plans, you can feel free to get them ahead of the next meeting so we can try and get them on the PowerPoint. Otherwise, if you don't get a chance to, just bring them to the meeting. We can put them on the document camera.
I guess real quick, if I do change my mind and just decide to rebuild what I have, do I have to just notify you?
Yeah, you could just let us know.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I was a no on the continuance.
What do we got now, 3? Huh? 3 continue?
Very good. That was good.
Yeah.
Item 6, Kelsey McCormick. Is that correct?
Kelsey McCormack. Thank you.
Okay. You have your name to Cheryl, so then when Aaron is ready, he will start.
All right. Last item on the agenda, we have, let's get my PowerPoint up to speed here. All right, last item, we have the Kelsey McCormack request. The request is located on Endicott Avenue, northwest in Silver Creek Township. There are 3 different parcels involved that are all zoned general agriculture and located on or within the shoreline jurisdiction of Millstone Lake, which is classified as natural environment. A little background information regarding these properties. What would be parcel 216,000, 172,400 was created with 1 building eligibility through a deed restriction in 2012. And then we have the remainder, which is now 216,000, 172,401 with no building entitlements, which is this one here. What is now the PID 216,000,171,201 was initially approved with 1 building eligibility and 1 home, but due to some expansion and some changes, what they were going to consider an old house and whatnot. I mean, you can maybe touch on it a little bit later as to why this might help resolve that. There's 2 homes on this property currently. If this request doesn't go through, it'd be something that we'd resolve after. Let's see here. So this request specifically, we're looking at adding 6.8 acres from PID 216-000-172-401 to PID 216-000-171. 201 and take 0.7 acres from PID 216-000-171-201 and add it to PID 216-000-172-400. I know when all these PID numbers get thrown around, it gets confusing and whatnot. Essentially what's happening is that sliver with the home, or let's call it the second home, on this parcel here, it would get combined back into this property here, which is where it initially came from. And there would technically not be any variances needed for this. The reason the variances are, I guess, being requested here would be this southern piece. You're looking at expanding an entitlement division. While it's not exceeding 10 acres, it is exceeding the 2.5 acres of prime soils. Technically, we're looking at a total of about 5.6, 5.7 acres of prime soils, where the 2.5 acres is required. And then the leftover that's here anyways, due to this being different parcels, it's about 285 feet. Technically speaking, a property over 5 acres, if you're on a lake or, riparian in general, you should have 300 feet as well along the lake. But in this case, it's really not possible unless you start adjusting other parcel boundaries as well. So that'll kind of wrap up my general overview. As far as the township goes, they said they approve of it, and I didn't get any written responses from neighbors.
Okay, does the applicant have anything they wish to ask or to add?
I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Thank you, Aaron. We have no intention of changing the purpose of the land. I know that that is something that's been brought into question. We would like to see that remain in production and would just like to create more of a buffer between us and the next landowners.
Okay. Anybody from the audience have a comment or question? Give your name to Cheryl for the record.
So my name is Rod Hebrink. I'm the neighbor to the north outside of the photos. But yeah, as Aaron had shared, this property was created in an estate in 2012. Otherwise, it had belonged to the building site. And so it's kind of permanently locked in between because I don't know if it was a section line or a quarter line, but it's that 6.8 acres is kind of locked in between, and it just made sense for it to go back to that building site. I think this was, Aaron, essentially the same variance that was provided for the northwest side of the lake last spring when there was 18 acres split, more than the 2.5 prime tillable acres of
Yeah, I
soil
think maybe
split
referring to
between
the
those two
northwest
buildings.
side of Millstone, the property right up here.
Yep, so that was the same issue added to both the north and the south building site there, so we're kind of
But
following
you're
that
referring, when
back.
you're saying the 6.8 acres or so, roughly, right? This is your piece here. If you look on the screen, that technically it belongs with the portion up here. So this is not a standalone parcel here. It
Right.
belongs with this. When these were divided out, it kind of split the whole property in half. So
Yeah, and so it just kind of makes sense to put them back together rather than having parcels on both sides of the building site.
Okay. Anyone else from the audience have a comment or question? If not, then we'll bring it up here, and Russ.
So this split here, the way I understand it, is going to take some ag land out of production?
No, the intention is to leave it in production.
Okay, then
Yep.
and what you're doing is basically bring them back together then and split the ag or the other land off of it?
Yes, yeah, we would like to attach the southerly portion of that parcel to our existing parcel, the 216-000-171201.
I guess I don't know much about splits and that, so I think I'll pass it on.
Okay. Dan?
Okay, Aaron, on the property on the 401, was there a building entitlement? I mean, why was that?
there's none
split off?
available at this point. So that one, I'll need to zoom back out. So 401 is this and this down here. And based on all the documentation, there's a lot of transfers or whatnot that had happened over the years through this. But essentially it left this where this is restricted up here because it's the same as this. So this is all restricted. There's the 2 building eligibilities that were used here. Technically speaking, since this one is still being occupied as a home, it should be back with this, which is where I think it originally was. There was another, transfer. It combined this, expanded this entitlement division. This was supposed to be converted with a shed, leaving another building eligibility out here for a new home. Luckily, that hasn't happened. So at this point, the request, and once again, it's a little confusing because there's a lot of stuff kind of going on here. But if this new red line here were created, it would not necessarily need a variance through our office, but being that this is a multi-part request, we're kind of just including the whole process here. This home would then be back with the remainder of the property here. So the one eligibility that it should have would be used by the existing home. So we're good there. Setback wise, no violations. Then this home here, which initially was created kind of as it's drawn right now, would be expanded because that property ending in 401 is already split from the acreage to the north. They just want to include it to their property here, which it's an entitlement division. An entitlement division could technically go up to 10 acres, right? We're just talking that the issue is that prime soils here, which ordinance does say that that's 2.5 acres of prime soils is the maximum. And then I shouldn't say the road frontage, the lake frontage portion, same thing. Technically speaking, it should have 300 feet. The reason why they're requesting 285 is because that's all that's available as part of this remainder of 401 from the larger 401 to the north.
Because the 401 to the south was already created, that's why it's 285. They're not creating that line now.
Yes, yeah, that the boundary that's there currently for 401, this is, if you can trace the mouse with me, like this is the remaining piece here already. So they're really not asking to break that remaining part of 401 up into any other pieces. They're looking at taking exactly what's there and adding it to this house site here. So yes, 285 is what's existing. That's why they're asking to take that. They're not looking at seeking a variance when 300 feet is available.
Okay.
Because it's not.
Other than if they would run that red line, that top red line between the buildings, then they could pick their 300 feet up.
Yep. So
Because
like I said, you're referring to this one here,
Yep.
correct? Yep. So like I said, kind of at the start, unless you start getting into potentially addressing stuff here, which wasn't really discussed, if that's something that they wanted to, potentially pursue, you are looking at likely setback concerns here. But there's a way they might be able to, if they removed a building or something, adjust the line and gain that additional 15 feet.
Because that was one of my concerns or my thoughts. I know this property, just like last month when we were talking about farm sites and houses being built together. This is the old Zelstra farm. The house to the north is Ma and Dad's. The son built the house to the south. They farmed. Farm's been sold. Everything's been split up. And again, just like last month, we're here with variances to deal with old farm sites. And so how do we do what's right? I look at we don't have our 300 feet, not that it's a deal breaker, but we don't have our 300 feet. At one point in time, even with this 2.5 prime soil, that house potentially could be torn down and a very large, nice estate built on that property. We come into that question of our prime soils, all of those things, but we are a riparian, we're on a lake or a body of water. So those are some of my concerns, that we're not meeting our 300. Well, potentially we could, but it's only 15 feet, but it is a variance. And then, in time, with this 2.5 acres over the prime, that is the edge of a good field, good agricultural land. And odds are, maybe not soon, but odds are there will be a home built there, turned into lawn and trees and you know, a view to the lake. It's all flat there coming down to the lake. There's no bluffs. It's all, could be a very, very, very beautiful estate. But we're taking out prime land.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Dick?
Well, noticing that the old house was supposed to be removed, which one is the old house? Is that the mom
North
did?
one.
The one in the north.
And why wasn't that done? Was that?
Well, it wasn't supposed to be removed. It was technically supposed to be converted. I don't know exactly if that was prior to you. I don't know when you guys technically purchased it. I just know it's something that when I was reading through some of the old or the history behind it, I happened to notice that, and it's something that should get addressed. So either it gets addressed by the Board of Adjustment by allowing this split, which would resolve it, puts the home back to the north, or it's something, if there's nothing approved by the board, we just take care of through our office.
Then where's the proposed new driveway to, I don't know if you're gonna call it 401 or 201?
Again, we aren't looking to change anything. We would like to remain using our current driveway. We talked about just potentially purchasing this southerly portion and keeping it a standalone. However, through talking, we had the recommendation that it gets attached and that the county or board would prefer to see it attached to a current parcel as opposed to a standalone. So no driveway will be put in for that parcel.
Yeah, they could have requested that southern part of 401 to be a standalone, separately saleable piece of ag land that's about 6 acres and doesn't have a residential building entitlement, but on that size, lakeshore, everything, that's considered a problem typically with our office. So it'd be a lot, it was obviously our recommendation that if they were gonna pursue this, they try and attach it to an existing home site at least.
Okay. So do we do that split with no access to the road using another private party?
Number back,
Yeah.
I don't know if the mic's working, probably not, I'll speak up. But they have, is that Aaron, 431 feet of road frontage? If they use a different access point, that's up to them. We
Okay.
just are concerned that they have road access.
Okay.
Is the main part.
Okay.
They have an easement privately between them, that's fine, but 431 feet of access, they can always build something if something happens on the northern parcel.
Yeah. I just hate to see the prime land go, but I guess if that works, that's good for me then.
So, just for I'm also familiar with this area. So there'll be just two properties if this is approved, is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
So it'll be kind of the 400 to the north, and then whatever yours would be to the south, is that?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. We've had other ones like this where they've had, well, I'll go back to the lake frontage, 15 feet, just because of the uniqueness of the shape of what it's drawn, and because more variances would potentially be needed if it were to change to get the 300. I'm okay with the 285. So going back, we've seen other properties where we've had these 5 acres of tillable ground, and this board has really struggled with it. However, you know, if they created like a 10-acre piece, we probably wouldn't be be that concerned, because it would be more kind of like a hobby farm or sort of that sort of thing. One thing that I don't know, I didn't read, we should consider animal unit restrictions perhaps, because they do have some sizable acreage here. Yeah, a home with 7 acres would be nice. I guess I'm okay with the split that's proposed. Just that I think that perhaps some animal unit restrictions would be in place.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Dan?
are you proposing to take 201 and 401 and making it one parcel? So I mean, it won't have two tax ID numbers,
That is the intention, yep, that this would be one
just one.
one parcel, correct? Yes.
Thank you.
That was my understanding, so I just wanted to be clear about that. Okay. And then the, dare I say, the old house, that would just be part of 400, is that correct?
Yes. Yep. We would like to see that on 400.
All right,
Yep.
okay. I guess that looks good to me. Does the board have any further discussion?
I actually wouldn't mind pointing something out. I just thought of, so being that we have the 2-home violation technically on one property, it would be my recommendation that, right, if this were to be approved, that these two situations are taken care of like at the same time. So our office might get our documents drafted saying that, we're good to go. But I didn't know if there's any issue with transfers. I wouldn't want to see where, you guys resolve or you obtain the acreage to the south, but then kind of like, push off the portion to the north somehow. So
We
we
would like
want to
to-
see the house,
Yeah.
kind of taken care of, right, the split, the same time then that you would take care of the land to the south.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and Russ, you were having a comment.
Yeah, you earlier was mentioned animal, hobby farm animals there.
No, we have one chicken.
Oh, that's more than I got. And because I'm concerned about that kind of, or a lot. Down there where I am, they have a lot of problems with, buy these little farm acres, then you start bringing in animals and aren't compatible with the neighborhood. That's why I'm asked it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Do you share a well, or does each house have its own well?
I believe it is shared. Yes. Shared.
How about a septic system? Is that shared, or does each have separate?
Those are separate.
Where is the well located?
That is on the 400.
The north one? Which may be a problem if there's a lender involved.
What's that? What's that?
You will have a 201 or the south 401 will have a problem if there's a lender involved, being that you don't have your own well.
Oh, sure. We're looking to continue owning both pieces.
Okay, but just for future, if
Sure.
if
Thank
they
you.
were standalone properties, they would each have to have their own well, their own septic. Aaron?
Oh, yeah.
So I just,
Actually, it's not that unusual to have shared well agreements between homes, and lenders are okay with that. That's where I spent my career, is in lending, as long as there's a shared well agreement.
I was just gonna say, I was talking with Greg, so I might have missed out on part of it, but I guess from like a zoning side of things, I don't have anything on like shared wells or anything, saying you can't have one, I should say.
Okay.
So, I mean, that might, like Bob might have brought up a point though, and I know Mr. Hebring did mention his as well, but there might be someone out there who doesn't want to see that, or a new purchaser potentially in the future, but just keep that in mind, so.
Sure. Sure.
All right, board, how would you like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve the request. I'll try this anyways. To add 6.8 acres from PID number 2160001724001 to PID number 216000171 and takes 0.7 acres from PID 216000171 to PID number 21600017240. The proposed expansion of PID 216000171 would be a total size of 7.9 acres and contain 5.7 acres of prime soil with 285 foot of frontage along the lake. Subject to survey, subject to a deed restriction and legal description of the remainder, animal restrictions to half per acre?
It's up to you guys, but it's pretty
Half
common.
per acre, and turned into one parcel, both the north and the south. One parcel PID number, and that's it.
We'll just kind of touch on those two, maybe just for terminology on our end and everything. So as far as, so we've got the deed restriction with any, if we go that route, we could kind of go two different ways. Deed restriction and updating the existings that have been done, or do the administrative orders in combined forms, essentially getting down to one parcel, is what you said. And then after speaking with Greg, trying to narrow down maybe some language to make sure it's all done at the same time, he mentioned that we should use all deeds and restrictions must be done at the same time.
So
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, was motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
All right. All right, now, board, we need to, I think that's the end of the agenda.
Before talking about the site inspection, I don't know if we can get Bernie Miller back up. I think he wanted to bring something up about that specific item.
okay.
All right.
Yeah,
I don't know how the formality for me to add him as a new item or whatever. If the board, you can. It was that
Pope and or Abby Roback.
Abby Roback, Cap Custom Homes.
Yeah, before you set the site meeting, I just want to make sure it wasn't a rush, because looking at it when we were having discussion, a couple of us couldn't be here on the 4th of October. And they're not going to planning on starting till next spring if it gets approved. So they were asking if they could get continued to the November 1st meeting, which would give you an extra month for a site visit.
Works better for me.
Does it? Good.
How about you,
For
Bob?
me.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
Maybe
from
you
a
could
hunt,
tie another site visit in for next month's meeting or something too, I don't know. If you don't have
I was
any.
gonna say, yeah, from the 120-day standpoint, it's December 21st for this specific item. So we've got October 4th, I believe, November 1st, and then the first week of December, there's another one as well. So I think we should be fine if they continued them to, I believe, November 1st being that following meeting.
What was the 120 days?
I've got December 21st. So I think we have a December meeting as well. That's before that.
So could we put with the board, Mr. Chair, could we put that on the agenda for the October meeting to set the site inspection?
I suppose we could, otherwise we could just continue it. Would it be better just to continue it to December 6th than have a site inspection in November? If you're not gonna build till spring anyway.
Well,
It doesn't give us much time if we work them over on anything, because it still gives them a month.
Okay.
I mean, we can still have them sign a waiver saying that, hey, we're good, kind of giving up our right to the 120 days. That gives it a little bit more flexibility for timing.
I think the November 1st would be ideal, and for the meeting.
All right.
And if you guys wanted to wait to see if you had any other site inspections that come up in the October meeting, you could do that between them two meetings would be fine, just to let you know, there's not a rush on our end for that.
It'll work better in my world, but I don't know about your world in farming, for October to November.
It's a site inspection.
We only have one item so far for October. Am I wrong, Aaron?
Yeah, technically there's one, but then we have some continued. So we've got Travis Tillett continued. We've got Abby Roback technically continued. So we've got Eric Roback continued. So we'll have three for sure.
None of those will be site inspections.
None of those will be site inspections.
I'd like to do the, in October though, because I don't want to do it after November 1st, when we're dealing with snow and everything.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay.
If we could, set the date of the site inspection in our October meeting, because it's on the 4th.
Works for me.
If we could set it then, I know my world will slow down, but Bob's is gonna be speeding up.
We'll just set it, and if I make it, I make it.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys go that route, you guys might want to amend the entire motion then not to include a site inspection in general. Just say the date of the next continuation. At that point, you guys could discuss. Because if you guys just change the date and you have a site inspection on there as part of your motion right now, I don't know what the
Why don't
Yeah,
we go-
Greg just left. I just don't want it to be like a weird legal thing that comes up. I don't know enough on that part.
Well, but we're
We've
we're
already
going to set a
continued.
site inspection. Can we set site inspection just sometime in October after the next meeting, can't we?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know if you guys were trying to wait for Paul or whatever to try and figure out a
No,
time. Okay, yeah,
no.
you guys can go ahead and,
We'll just set the site
Choose a
inspection
date
sometime in
after.
October,
yeah.
and then we'll,
And then if we have something in October that needs a site inspection, we'll pick the same day.
yep, add it right on.
But not late October. I'd rather have it not late, early
fine.
October would be all right.
That's fine.
Yeah. Say the 11th or something,
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
work for you?
What-
Dan's gonna change his motion.
So I will amend my motion to continue it until the November meeting. And we'll set a site inspection for sometime in October.
And I think
Do you
it's
guys want to choose the 11th of October? That's the next Friday.
after the 4th.
Yeah, if that works for everybody, we'll choose the 11th of October for a site inspection meeting here at the courthouse at 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
in the morning.
October 11th. Did I second it? I think so. So moved. Yep, so moved then for me.
Okay?
All right. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Move to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. Okay.
Motion made and adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.